as the head chief first researcher of Labs Z9 and Z14. There I fought valiantly to preserve rattlesnake DNA and put it right where it belongs, in the husk of another feared predator. Oh, and the tarantula hook. Can't splice enough, I always say, especially if you can make a magnificent cazador.
Thanks for that introduction, Dr. Borous. So, we are talking today about the Nightstalkers, which are a hybridization of rattlesnakes and coyotes. As stated, Dr. Borous created them in the Z9 Crotalis DNA Preservation Lab at Big Mountain, and they were subjected to further experimentation at the X13 research facility, where they were given the ability to become invisible. They have escaped the crater, and they can be found in various places across the Mojave wasteland. They are breeding and thriving, and they hunt in packs and live in caves for the most part, but you can sometimes find them wandering the wasteland. So first up, we're going to talk about the coyotes. So coyotes, the scientific name is Canis latrans, and they are also known as the American jackal, the prairie wolf, or the brush wolf. They are close relatives of the grey wolf, but they are smaller than these kind of related species. The average male weighs up to 20 kilograms, the females being slightly smaller, about 18 kilograms, which is round about 40 pounds. So kind of equivalent of what I'd consider a kind of medium-large dog, and that kind of size range. They do tend to live in kind of loose family units or sometimes packs of unrelated animals, but their social structure's kind of flexible and quite loose. They are known to hybridize, so they've been known to breed with wolves and create some hybrids with the closer related species. And they can also hybridize with domestic dogs, which is Canis familiaris. It's quite rare, and the offspring are not very manageable, even when you compare to the wolf and dog hybrids that exist as well. But in Native American folklore, the coyotes do play a prominent role, and they tend to be depicted as a kind of trickster. They're known to be the most vocal of the wild North American mammals, which their scientific name means barking dog. So they have quite a range of sounds, from barks, growls, howls, yelps and whines. They are carnivores, and they'll often hunt in pairs or small groups to take down larger prey, but some animals will happily take down smaller prey on their own. Ironically enough, they will even eat rattlesnakes, which is quite funny in the context of what we're discussing today, given that they've been hybridized together, which is interesting. They are problematic for livestock in areas where they are living, so a lot of the deaths of sheep, goats and cattle in North America have been attributed to coyotes, so it is a bit of a problem for the kind of animal agriculture in America, because they are a canine species. So canine means dog-like, and that does include wolves, foxes, coyotes and others. But because they are closely related to other canine species, they are susceptible to a number of diseases, including rabies, which is obviously very problematic, canine distemper, and infectious canine hepatitis, which is caused by canine adenovirus, which has now been called canine mastadenovirus A, because they keep changing the name of these things. And other things, they're also quite prone to mange, both with the Demodex mites and the infectious Sarcoptes mange, which is sometimes known as scabies. Fleas and tapeworms are common as well, which includes Echinococcus granulosus, which is one that you might hear referred to as a hydatid worm, and it's a zoonotic tapeworm, so that's a tapeworm that can affect humans, and it can be very serious in humans. It is an important sort of public health issue, so that's something to bear in mind. But they are commonplace in North America, in a lot of places, so it is a species that you would expect to see running around, certainly, you know, in the kind of west and the southwest. So next let's talk about the other species that's involved in the creation of the Nightstalkers, which is the rattlesnakes. So rattlesnakes are a genus of pit vipers, and there's a number of species that can be found in Nevada, which include Crotalus cerastes, the sidewinder or horned rattlesnake, Crotalus pyrrhus, which is the speckled rattlesnake, which makes it sound kind of cute actually, and Crotalus scutulatus, the Mojave rattlesnake. These snake species can get up to 150 centimetres or 5 foot in length. Their bodies are quite heavy and thick, and they obviously are best known for the rattles on the end of their tails. So these are formed from the scales covering the tip of the tail. And all other snake species, when snakes shed their skin, they shed their entire skin all together. So normally, even the end of the tail is shed, although in some cases the shed can get stuck. And I have seen problems with that in corn snakes, where if the skin of the tail doesn't fully shed, it forms a ring, and I have actually had to amputate the end of the tail in some pet snakes because of this. However, in rattlesnakes, these scales build up after each shed and have become kind of specialised so that they make a rattling noise when the tail is vibrated or shaken. So what they do is they shake their tail and create that kind of rattle sound, which is something that they use as a kind of warning to back off. So I'll play the sound here for you and let you hear it. So that's what it sounds like when you hear the rattling of the snake. So they're not a particularly aggressive species of snake, but they will defend themselves and can strike from quite a distance if they feel threatened. But oftentimes they will use the rattle as a warning that they're there and to back off, because they will strike if they feel threatened. And the thing about snakes is that they can strike from a distance and they can move blindingly fast. One of my old bosses once told me, when dealing with snakes, not to worry about getting bitten by a snake, because it'll happen so fast that you'll not realise until after it's done, and there'll be little that you can do to stop it. Of course, that advice is fine when you're not dealing with venomous snakes, but unfortunately, with rattlesnakes, they are venomous. So their venom has hemotoxic effects, which means that it can prevent blood clotting, which can lead to a bleeding disorder, which can be pretty serious. Some of them have also, their venom has neurotoxic effects, which means it affects the nervous system, which can also lead to kind of paralysis and things like that. If you're interested in more information about venoms and poisons that have these effects, I do have some pages on my website that talk about that in more detail. So if you're interested in learning more and you don't want to Google it and end up on a list somewhere, then check out my website. There's some details there. I'm working on adding more resources there, which is aimed at kind of people that write, or people that are creating games, or narratives and things like that maybe want to know some of these facts. So that's something that's that you might find interesting. Be shameless plug there, but I keep these resources freely available for everybody, so you can check that out if you're interested. And typically, as with the majority of snakes, they eat small animals, sort of rodents, lizards, birds, occasionally other snakes, and they swallow their prey whole. So one of the interesting things about rattlesnakes is that they don't lay eggs. They are what's classed as ovoviviparous, which basically means that they give birth to live young instead of laying eggs. So when the fetuses are inside the mother, they have a yolk sac, which is where they get their nutrition from, like species that lay eggs. So obviously egg yolk, the purpose of that is to provide nutrition to the developing embryo until it's ready to hatch. So ovoviviparous means that they produce a yolk sac and a kind of incomplete egg instead of having a placenta, and then the offspring stay inside, feed off the yolk sac, and then are birthed when they're ready. So that's different from oviparous, which is the term where fertile eggs are laid in a nest of some kind, and then grow and hatch after an incubation period. The other term is viviparous, which means there's no egg formation, and the developing embryos get nutrition directly from the parent, usually via a placenta. So that's kind of the difference. So mammals, generally we have placentas, so we're viviparous. Most birds are oviparous because they produce fertile eggs and lay them in a nest. The majority of reptiles are also oviparous, but like rattlesnakes and some other snake species are ovoviviparous. You also see this in some shark species as well. So quite an interesting kind of division there. And I think it's particularly interesting because when we see the Nightstalkers that are derived from rattlesnakes and coyotes, so a mammal, they lay eggs, which is bizarre given that neither of the species that created the Nightstalkers lay eggs. Obviously, we do know that certain mammals lay eggs, although these are kind of the oddballs of the mammal group, being the platypus or the duck-billed platypus and the echidna species, which are mammals that lay eggs, but they evolved in Australia completely isolated from the rest of the world, and they are oddballs in a number of ways. But other than them, mammals don't lay eggs, and the rattlesnakes also don't lay eggs, so it's kind of bizarre that the Nightstalkers do. But it's an interesting one. It's definitely in the realms of science fiction, and even if there is a possibility of doing this kind of crossover between reptiles and mammals, it's not something that I think anybody should attempt to do. There's potential consequences, as happens with the Nightstalkers, and they've made enough films about stuff like this that kind of warn us about the playing God too much when it comes to science. Jurassic Park comes to mind. So that's kind of a rundown of the kind of species that combine the Nightstalkers. So we'll head over to the part of Old World Blues where these creatures were created, and we'll have a chat about them in themselves, as well as their invisibility capabilities, and a couple of the kind of unique versions, as well as how to handle them when you're playing the game. So let's head over to the Big Empty and I'll meet you there. So let's talk about how you would even go about hybridising a mammal and a reptile together. Is that something that is realistically possible in real life? Okay, do you know what? I'm going to take the stealth suit off because she just doesn't shut up. Anyway, so is it really possible to hybridise a mammal and a reptile together? Who really knows? As far as I know, nobody has attempted it in real life so far, but they've made enough Jurassic Park movies and things like that to make you think that we should really be quite careful, because we know that there's evidence of coyotes hybridising with other species, but they're generally breeding with other canine species like wolves or dogs, which are close relatives to them. Same thing can happen with some species of snake, but there's such a big difference in so many anatomical features with snakes and canines like coyotes, dogs, wolves, etc. So there's quite a lot of kind of physiological differences as well, with snakes being ectothermic or cold-blooded, as people kind of tend to understand it, although that's not really strictly accurate in terms, but it basically means that reptiles control their body temperature through environmental things and behaviour, so basking in the sunlight and moving to the shade to cool down, that kind of thing, whereas mammals, we produce heat, we consume energy to produce heat to keep our bodies at the functional temperature that we want them to be, and that's the main difference. So interestingly, if you combine these two things together, their main body shape is very much like the coyote. So are they warm-blooded, are they cold-blooded, are they a bit of both? Who knows? But there are, so we'll go in here. This is the main kind of lab work area. So the main kind of reward for exploring this place is the Autodoc upgrade implant Y3, as well as a ton of Nightstalker tails, Nightstalker blood, Nightstalker eggs and things. And this is Shadis, I think that's how you pronounce it. And this is one of the legendary kind of unique enemies. This is the unique kind of Nightstalker that you find in Old World Blues, and a clutch of eggs. So we'll get to that in a second, but I wanted to kind of take a closer look at these. So I'm going to grab this cave fungus to get it out of the way. So here we have radiographs, we have x-rays, presumably of Nightstalkers, because that neck is quite long, but these are clearly canine. So when it comes to say we've got the chest here, so this is the kind of heart shadow that you would see, and then the darker area around is the lungs. So canids, like coyotes and pretty much all mammals, have two lungs. Snakes only have one that's fully developed, and they also have a small kind of attenuated lung that may have other functions, but in terms of oxygen exchange, snakes have one lung, dogs and coyotes have two. The heart, so you can see the kind of heart shadow there. So the heart in dogs and a majority of mammals has 4 chambers. You've got your right and left atrium, and then your right and left ventricle. Snakes only have 3 chambers, so they have 2 atria, but they have a single ventricle that pumps into both the arteries going to the lungs and the artery going to the rest of the body at the same time. So there's all these kind of differences, and combining them together is quite interesting. But these x-rays look very distinctly canine. That's a typical kind of canine pelvis x-ray, and the paw, that's what they look like, and then the shape of the abdomen. So you've got actually quite good x-rays. I wonder where they got them from. So you've got your heart shadow and lungs there, that's the kind of liver shadow, and then your jumble of kind of stomach and intestines and things like that. So yeah, quite interesting. And then if we go over to this other light box, these are snake x-rays. So that's quite typical of what you would see on a x-ray of a snake. So snakes obviously don't really have limbs, with the exception of some boas and pythons that do have like a little vestigial pelvis and claws, but the majority of snakes don't. They have quite well developed jaws with extra bones, that means that they can open their mouth really wide so that they can swallow their prey whole. After that, they are just a long stretch of vertebrae and ribs. So snakes, like a lot of reptiles, have ribs all the way down to essentially what would be the pelvis, and then the tail kind of continues after that. So they actually have ribs all the way down, and they're just basically made up of long vertebrae. So their internal organs are all long and thin and stretched out. So it's quite interesting to see the anatomy of a snake. Everything's just long and thin. to fit into this, you know, tube of muscle basically that is their body. It's quite fascinating. So, you know, we've got the combination of the two of them here, you know, and this kind of madness. But this here, the facility, this is the Z9, what's it called? Z9 Crotalis DNA Preservation Lab. So this is where the Nightstalkers were created, and then they escaped, and they've moved over to the Mojave wasteland. Yeah, quite a lot of Nightstalkers around this this area as well. So be wary. You can see all the like cages and stuff, and then you've got a lobotomite mask from this unfortunate dude who definitely was food for the Nightstalkers. Poor guy. But yeah, you look in all these side rooms and there's just cages. What's that? Junk food, a skeleton, more eggs, another egg clutch. It's more of the same x-rays there, more snake x-rays. But it's a nice touch actually that they didn't just put in, oh, you're not supposed to be out here. That they didn't just put in like, you know, generic x-rays, like that they've actually got, I don't know whether they've got hold of x-rays from, you know, from a vet's or something, and use them. Really cool. Yeah. And let's talk about Shadis. So this is the kind of unique variant of the Nightstalker that's in Old World Blues. So in terms of differences, it's not much bigger, definitely a wee bit bigger than the normal ones, but the main thing is that this one is quite tough. So I'll compare that to the one that I had earlier, and I had the battle rifle, just to see. So when we were looking at the legendary Nightstalker Bloodborne Cave, 2 headshots from the battle rifle would have killed it, and that version of the character was at a lower level than this one is, whereas here a headshot's only doing maybe 20% of the health, that something like that. So yeah, Shadis is much tougher and more dangerous compared to the other Nightstalkers, and even much tougher than the legendary Nightstalker that we saw. So if you're coming in here and you really want this implant, beware, because Shadis is quite dangerous. Or you could just cheat and turn combat off, but that's not so much fun. I'm only doing that for the sake of education purposes here. But yeah, there's quite a few. I mean, some of them are hidden away in the side rooms, but most of them are just kind of wandering. Back to Observatory Terminal, let's see. Okay, so shipping department, unusual shipment. Dr. Richardson, we've just received the latest shipment of dogs for the Cyberdog experiment process, but well, frankly, I think our supplier screwed us. The animals must be basically feral. Every time we get close to the shipping kennels, they let out the most god-awful hissing, and well, rattling is the only way I can describe it. Please advise, should we open the kennels or just send them back? Shipping department, please advise. So, at Dr. Richardson's request, we opened one of those kennels from our latest shipment. The dog inside, and I use that term very loosely, appeared to be suffering from a truly horrendous case of mange, and upon being released, it immediately attacked, killed, and attempted to swallow whole specialist Acres. Luckily, the situation has, for now at least, contained itself, as SPC Acres was a very large man and the creature has choked to death. Does anyone know anything about this shipment? Please advise. So, a few more hints about what was in the shipment of dogs, given that they've got a case of mange, i.e. fur loss, so dogs that have mange their skin becomes very thickened and their hair falls out. Mange is caused by mites that live kind of they burrow into the surface of the skin. There's two kinds. There's demodectic mange, which is caused by a mite called demodex. It's not contagious, but it can be quite distressing and irritating for the dog. The other one is scabies, which is sometimes referred to in the UK as fox mange. I think there's a belief that other animals get it from foxes, and it can be known as scabies, which is caused by Sarcoptes scabii, which is the mite that causes it, and it's the one that is contagious. But you might have guessed from the rattling and the hissing and the attempt to swallow prey whole, these are Nightstalkers, because they're feeding like a snake, but unfortunately the man was too big and the creature has choked to death. And that is something that's been known to happen with snakes sometimes, if they do bite off more than they can chew, so to speak, because they can't really chew, they don't have that kind of teeth, and they swallow their prey whole. But sometimes if they try and eat something that is too big, this will happen. And it has been known to happen in snakes where they've taken on prey that's too large. So that is what we're dealing with here, is these dogs that they've been sent are Nightstalkers. Shipping department in lockdown. In light of the large number of fatalities due to the latest shipment of experimental test subjects, the shipping department is going into lockdown. I give you my personal assurance that as soon as this plague of monsters has been dealt with, I will work overtime to get your deliveries to you in a timely and efficient manner, as I am currently the only surviving member of the shipping department. However, there may still be some delays. Until then, Dr Callis in X13 has the pass card for the area. Skippy, sole survivor. And then regarding shipping department lockdown, in our last supervisor meeting we discussed the possible benefits of the small shipping accident. We're considering studying the unexpected specimen's behaviour by releasing them into our test area before removing them from the X8 facility. The shipping department will remain in lockdown until a decision has been reached. Dr Figgis. So yeah, basically they sent them a bunch of Nightstalkers instead of dogs, and the entire shipping department, except for one person, died. So, okay. So before we do anything with the basic infiltration test, let's go and do this last little splicing experiment. I can't remember what this does, but I think it's yeah, clear splicing area, and then robot and unusual specimen. Robot bent on destruction. Yeah, it basically does, it attacks and then Dr Callis terminal. Okay, useful. Nightstalker research. I believe this latest serum has proven to be a success. Under human observation, the creatures remain visible, but some of the nighttime recordings reveal the serum is working. The animals appear to be learning how to use their new cloaking ability when no one is around. Perhaps there is a physical limitation or some mental drawback to the ability which prevents its usage under duress. I think I will pursue stress testing of the animals first thing Monday morning. So I think this is talking about them trying to make the Nightstalkers turn invisible, which if you do the quest for Jacobstown, you find out that that's something that they are able to do after chewing on a stealth boy. So interesting one there. X13 shipment notice. Your shipment of cattle prods arrived today. I'd like to remind you our systems are designed to prevent infiltration by enemy agents, not internal threats. If you're doing any testing on creatures, please forward that task to the animal testing facility. As you found with the sonic emitter, our force fields can't handle power fluctuations well. And then message from Assistant Paris. I've noticed some of the creatures have been increasingly aggressive when I come into the lab in the morning. Did something change in their diet? I'll run some tests if you like. And then reread test subject observations. So this is obviously the two messages that are in between the ones that we read on the other terminal. I went ahead and did the lab test and noticed no appreciable changes in their blood work. I'm concerned our use of the cattle prods may react with the chemistry of the injections. This is new ground we're treading. I'd hate to see your hard work lost to a change in brain chemistry. These critters could be invaluable to the war effort if we can somehow control their behaviour. So that kind of gives us a bit of a clue as to aim with the Nightstalkers, that they wanted to make them basically so that they could control them and use them in the war effort, kind of like what was intended with the death clause as well. Glasses, another skeleton, bunch of empty cages.
Time to fight. Psst. If you want to be sneaky, turn off your Pip-Boy light.
I mean, sure, but you're saying
Was that all?
Preserved meat. She's saying like time to fight, but I don't see anything.
Cessation of hostilities complete.
That would be why I couldn't see it, because it was invisible. That makes sense.
Uh-oh.
Ah!
Injecting stim pack.
Okay. Welcome to Jacobstown. We have taken a hike up into the mountains, so up here in the kind of northwest corner of the map. We follow this long road and we're here in Jacobstown. So this is a town populated by super mutants and nightkin, with Marcus being one of the leaders. And Marcus was actually a character in one of the older Fallout games, but we're not really here to talk about the super mutants or the nightkin as such today. We are here to learn about learn about the Nightstalker. So we've got Calamity here and we have Dr. Henry.
I assume this is about something important? You're interrupting my research.
What you working on?
The Nightkin have varying degrees of mental instability due to their addiction to stealth boy use. I've been trying to come up with a cure. I'm currently investigating the local Nightstalker population, since they seem to have developed a natural stealth field. I've also gotten my hands on a working Stealth Boy Mark II prototype, but that experiment is riskier. I'd rather not pursue that research just yet.
Okay, so can I help?
I'm not convinced that the Nightstalker mutation is a natural one, and I need someone to investigate their lair for proof. Some of the super mutants have looked around as well, but they've come back empty-handed. Perhaps a pair of fresh eyes will have better luck. Lily might be interested in coming with you. She's lost a few of her bighorners to Nightstalker attacks, and would enjoy a little revenge.
Okay, so what makes you think that the Nightstalker mutation isn't natural?
I've compared the brain chemistry of a nightkin to one of the local Nightstalkers we killed. They both exhibit similar neurochemical changes. Now, I'm not claiming that Nightstalkers are running around wearing stealth boys, mind you. I just don't think it's all a coincidence.
Okay.
If we must.
Okay, bye.
Yes. yes.
Yeah, there's a few other things that you can learn about him if you dig into his sort of dialogue and things, and there's other quests that he is involved with, but we're only interested in the Nightstalkers, although actually it's quite a good well lit view, so you can see the sort of snake heads with the coyote ears. Body shape looks very much canine, and then the tail kind of develops into scales and ends in the sort of rattle that's typical of the rattlesnake. So it's bizarre and fascinating biology. However, we have now been given a quest called Guess Who I Saw Today. So we need to look for the source of the Nightstalker stealth mutation. I could go and get Lily, but I've got combat AI turned off, so... this is the way. So we're just going to follow this path up and around to Charleston Cave. So you see them kind of causing a ripple in the air. I just don't know how well you'll be able to see that. Yeah, there we go. Like, you can see there's one right there, and then you can see the outline of it. And there's... I'm not sleeping on the bed with the skeleton. There's another one over there. So you can see them, just not as easily. Like, they do have that kind of ripply invisibility effect. And then they appear if you attack. So yeah, you can see the kind of scales and things, and the forked tongue. They do tend to ragdoll quite a lot, the Nightstalkers, compared to other creatures. It's you know, when you attack them, they tend to ragdoll quite a bit. Yeah, I think... Oh. So yeah, there's another one. And you can hear the hissing and the rattling. So they make noises that you'd associate with rattlesnakes and with coyotes. They do, you know, sort of growl and bark and howl and things as well. So when you're doing this quest, you'd be working your way through this cave where there's invisible snake dogs. Oh, you're not invisible. Until we find the explanation for the invisible Nightstalkers. Because in Old World Blues, the invisible ones are all confined to X8, I believe. So these ones have kind of developed this invisibility separately. So he did say that the Nightstalkers were taking some of Lily's big corners. There's another invisible Nightstalker. So there's a unique weapon, Oh Baby, which is the unique super sledge. And then this Nightkin here, who has a chewed stealth boy. So that's the reason that the whatever it is that causes the radiation with the stealth boy that makes things invisible. That is what's created these invisible Nightstalkers. Yeah, it's quite weird to see them like that. So. Yeah. I have combat AI turned off as usual for these videos, because it's just much easier to get a good look at things. But clearly the Nightstalkers are susceptible to things that make them turn invisible, because it's two separate occasions where that has happened. But we'll go back to Dr. Henry and see what he has to say about the chewed up stealth boy. If anything. Oh, that's dead end. There's mushrooms everywhere in this cave. So many fungi. Cool. Right. Can I just fast travel back to Jacobstown from here? That would be so much easier. Right. Hello, Marcus. Goodbye, Marcus. But yeah, the super mutants are totally different, you know, compared to the East Coast super mutants. These guys are clearly from the Master and the, you know, the super mutants that he created, and the Nightkin as well. So, yeah, interesting. But we'll get into that later. Doc Henry.
Is there something else I can do for you?
Frame rate went a bit funny there. I have found up chewed up stealth boy.
There's still power, but the casing is cracked. I'm astonished that exposure to the stealth radiation could induce mutations so rapidly. More importantly, this explains why my research into this group of Nightstalkers hasn't come up with a cure for the Nightkin. There's only one avenue left for me. I need to run the Mark II test on Lily. It's the only way.
Okay.
Once you're done thinking, talk to Lily.
There we go. So yeah, so he's gonna, he's basically trying to find a cure for the Nightkin because they use stealth boys, and it causes them to develop some mental health issues. So he's trying to find a way to help them. So Dr. Henry, actually, if you kind of look into things, he actually is a former member of the Enclave. There's a few of them dotted about and that are here. But yeah, so that's the Invisible Nightstalkers in the base game, so it's clear that between that and whatever the serum was that they were injected with, an X13, they're susceptible to this, whatever it is that makes them invisible. So yep, we'll see how that goes. But next up we want to go to Bloodborne Cave. Here we go. So this is Bloodborne Cave. So we're kind of directly east of the Brotherhood of Steel safe house, and outside we've got a bunch of Nightstalkers all standing together. So dangerous part of the world right enough here. There is death claws further back and all sorts. I saw a fire gecko in the distance as well, but we're here for the Nightstalkers, so typically you will find them in groups. I think that one's a young one. Yeah, because it's a bit smaller than the standard ones. And just like any creature, really, headshots tend to be effective. Oh, they're very good at synchronised movements there. That's a great trick, guys. But yeah, so you'll find them in packs running around. And in here, yep, let's go in. So this is Bloodborne Cave. It's kind of lit up by some glowing fungus by the looks of things. Let's see, let's go this way first. Oh, there is. I think you can get a key for that from somewhere. Not really relevant to us just now though. I've got some skeletons. They're clearly participating in some kind of yoga class. And got some youngsters. And some skulls. Okay. So yeah, there's a young one and a big one. Right, sorry for disturbing your skeleton yoga class. But there is, I can't remember, but there is a way to get in there without having max lockpick. I think you can get a key for it from somebody. Right. Head down. Okay, I guess we're jumping down here. Follow the path round, and yeah, more skeletons. Looks like they've been camping. Hunter Royal revolver. Oh, over encumbered. Lamco mac and cheese. Hunting shotgun. Yeah, so hunting shotgun, hunting revolver. These guys obviously were setting up a little kind of shelter and hunting, and this looks like kind of similar to the sulphur caves that you find under Vault 19 actually. That's what that looks like. And then here we go, we've got there's the legendary. Yep, so again we've got another pack of, what's that, 6 plus this big guy. So this is legendary Nightstalker right here. So you can see much bigger. And quite a bit tougher, whereas, you know, Vats was telling me that the normal Nightstalker, if I got a headshot, it was instant kill, but not for the legendary. But they are definitely tougher. You know, it's definitely tougher than the normal ones and a lot bigger. So that pretty much covers everything to do with the Nightstalkers, including their interesting ability to lay eggs, their weird combination of species, and obviously the ability to become invisible, which seems to happen quite easily for them when they're exposed to a serum or to whatever it is in Stealth Boys that make the Stealth Boys work. And we've also met Shadis here and the legendary Nightstalker, which are the kind of more dangerous, unique variants that you can stumble across in various places. So definitely an interesting one. They're quite bizarre, definitely a bit on the creepy side. But I hope you find this all interesting. Thanks for watching, thanks for listening, and don't forget to hit subscribe if you want to see more like this. Bye.